All right, guys, Randy here with 4 Level Coach. We help builders and remodelers scale their business to create fortunes and get a lot more freedom. Let's dive into the Freedom Builders Academy, where we can get into our video vault and get into one of our pieces and tools of content. And today, we're going to get into our 12 critical numbers. So we'll get out and find our 12 critical numbers. Now, underneath each one of these video guys, again, are our links where we can get into every one of these tools, concepts, spreadsheets for you. So let's get into the 12 critical numbers. Why do we have scoreboards? We need scoreboards in our business to measure the most important metrics. We refer to these as KPIs, our key performance indicators, or KRIs, our key results indicators. So if we don't have metrics in our business to track and measure, then we cannot manage what we don't measure. We've heard that term before. We can't manage what we can't measure or what we don't measure, and we can't change what we don't measure. So if we want to change the game, we want to get to the next level, we've got to start measuring and using scoreboards. This is one of them. So this is our 12 critical number scoreboard. You know, here's the thing. When we look at these 12 critical numbers, we can find these on various financial tools in our business, various other scoreboards and spreadsheets and, within our systems, within our software. But what I love about scoreboards is we're pulling out the key critical pieces. We don't necessarily have to look at everything in our business to get overwhelmed. What we need to do is look at the key critical pieces. So these are the 12 critical numbers of our business. And let's get started, and I'll show you where we find each one of these along the way. So number one is, of course, revenue. Now, when we look at revenue, we track these things on a monthly basis. So our scoreboard is set up with our 12 months of the year. This here refers to a 2022 scoreboard. You can, of course, change that up and start moving forward month to month. Wherever you start is a great starting point. So you can copy and use this for yourself, guys, okay? So number one is revenue. Obviously, we need to see what kind of revenue, what kind of income, and where we see that is on our profit and loss statement, right? So our financials, profit and loss, balance sheet, and cash flow, right? So one, profit and loss, we find our revenue there. Now, it could be revenue, could be considered as sales or income. Each one of those is the same damn thing on our profit and loss. So we're looking at that number. Now, why do we have target and actual? Because we want to set up, now we can set these up months in advance. We can set up the next 12 months of targets that we want to hit, or we can set up our target for each month following. So what's the next month's target, right? Because, and the reason being is if we're setting goals for the next 12 months, we want to really say, well, if we're going to hit those goals, how are we going to get to our targets? If we have targets, remember, what we focus on becomes real. What we focus on becomes real. Our brain, our business, our everything that we do within the business starts heading towards hitting those targets, figuring out how we're going to get there. We talk about our execution loop in our programs all the time, because the execution loop is about reviewing, evaluating, and adjusting course along the way. So are we getting further or closer to our targets? What's helping us get there? These 12 critical numbers helps us make better decisions in our business by understanding these numbers. Having these targets drives us towards those goals. So let's look at our actuals to our targets on a monthly basis. So one is revenue income. Two, average job size. Why is average job size important? Because we ultimately want to increase the size of our jobs and our projects. Why? Because we want to increase percentages along the way. And if we're basing average job size as, under $100,000, we got to get it over 100, or we want to get to 2 or 3, or we want to take it to $1 million build eventually, or high-level renos that are in that $1 million range, right? Now, if that's the case, we might be at $1 million now, and we want to start achieving $2 to $3 million projects, right? So we're always focused on what we focused on becomes real, because we figure out how to get there if that's where we want to go. And so average job size is critically important to know and understand. What are we doing today, and where do we want to go? And after 12 months, how can we get there, right? So this starts creating our game plan. So next is gross profit, right? So gross profit, again, can be found on our profit and loss. Our average job size, I'll show you actually here. We have this list here for you guys, so you can go through this, take a screenshot of this if you like. This is where you'll find all of the numbers of our 12 critical that we're talking about, right? So here we go. So gross profit can be found on our profit and loss. A gross profit percentage, of course, is our gross profit divided by our total income multiplied by 100. That gives us our gross profit percentage. Right? Our average job size, when we looked at that, is our total revenue of all of our jobs in progress or completed as a dollar amount divided by the number of jobs. So, of course, that gives us our average job size. Now, let's go back to our scoreboard for a minute. So, when we look at gross profits, gross profit is really simply our income minus our COGS, or our cost of goods sold. It shows up in our profit and loss. But our gross profit's critical. Now, I believe our percentage is extremely important. So knowing our percentages is critical, because what we can improve are our percentages. If we can tweak our numbers, if we can increase that revenue, if we can decrease our cost of goods, we increase our percentage, right? So there's ways to increase that percentage. This helps us make decisions about our business, how we move forward, how we're selling and closing jobs. Our overhead expenses. Our overhead expenses basically are operating expenses. It's everything below the gross profit line in our P&L, our profit and loss statement. So our overhead expenses, or our operating expenses, also can be known as our break even. And so eventually we need to know our break even percentage. What are we operating? How are we operating? And at what level of percentage do we need to achieve to just break even, to cover our overheads? Now, if our gross profit isn't enough to cover our break even, we've got a problem on the bottom line in our net profit, right? If we want to increase net profit, we have to increase gross profit, and we have to decrease our break even percentage, right? So all of these numbers start telling us a story about how our business is operating. Remember, we want targets for each one of these, because we're going to figure out ways to increase gross profit, to decrease break even, to increase net profit as we get into net profit next. Now, what's net profit? Let's look at net profit. Net profit is simply our gross profit minus our overhead expenses. Our net profit percentage is simply our gross profit our net profit. Let's do this again. Our net profit percentage is our net profit dollar divided by our income in dollars multiplied by 100. So that gives us our net profit percentage. Now, where are we operating our business at? If we're a custom builder, are we at 10 to 12%? If we're doing builds of $1 million plus? Are we a remodeler doing $150,000 projects, and we should have a net profit of 15 to 20% on net bottom line profit, right? So our percentages are critical, that we understand what they are and how to get there. If we want to get a 15% bottom line net profit as a remodeler, and we know what our overhead expenses are, then we damn well know what we need as a gross profit, because if we don't get that right, we certainly aren't going to get our net profit right. So these numbers, you can see, are absolutely critical, and monitoring and measuring these on a monthly basis is absolutely critical to move forward. Now, again, our targets are going to set our sights. Our actuals are going to tell us how we're doing, how far off base we are, and that will have us make better decisions as we move forward month to month in our business to start tweaking and improving those numbers and those percentages. Now we get into some things that are maybe a little bit more interesting. Maybe we haven't seen or talked about much in our business or thought about much, but working capital. What's our working capital number? What's our working capital in terms of dollars? And let's jump back here and see, what is working capital? Well, first of all, working capital here can be found in our balance sheet or on our balance sheet, right? So working capital can be found in our balance sheet. Now, how do we find it? How do we calculate it? It's our current assets minus our current liabilities. Our current assets minus our current liabilities. If you haven't ever dug into a balance sheet before, you need to dig into this. You need to understand what those numbers are and what they mean to you. So our current assets are really our operating bank account, our accounts receivable. This would be very simplistic. Those are typically current assets, and our current liabilities are typically our credit cards, our, paying our trades, our suppliers, or accounts payable in our overheads, right? So any of those, the combination of our current assets minus our current liabilities, end up equaling our current working capital, the dollars we have to run and operate our business as a working capital in our business. Now, we might not know what that should be to start, and that can be a different number depending on your business. It's all over the place. But what you need to understand is I want to increase my working capital, which means I have to increase cash flow, which means I may have to invoice faster, collect money faster, pay bills slower. I need a combination of things to come together to increase my working capital. So it's critical to set targets to make new decisions about how we run and operate our business based on these 12 critical numbers. Of course, the next one being personal income, pretty straightforward. Why do I want to know personal income? Because at the end of the day, I want to increase my personal income. And how do I do that? I need to set some targets of where I want to be in 12 months from now. And if I'm going to get there, what do I have to do along the way to increase these numbers, increase our net profit so that I can make some more money? That's critical. But so many guys overlook their own personal income as they're trying to develop and build their business. And you're the most important asset your business has. Yet you pay yourself probably the least in a lot of cases, unless you're taking your business to the next level or you're already there. Then damn it, you deserve to be paid properly. Let's help you get that payment. Let's help you get that personal income that you want and desire and deserve, right? You've got to desire it, then you deserve it, and go get it. And so you've got to get your business set up so that your personal income becomes extremely important to you. So set the targets of where you want to be, start making the right decisions in the business to get there. Now, number 11 here is our 50% to close in our pipeline. Now, what does that mean? Right? So we have a sales pipeline. Just working with a client last week, which I loved hearing this. This is a beautiful story. This guy has been struggling, not even cracking $1 million ever in his business over the years. And has recently been focused on his pipeline, taken a whole different approach on his pipeline. Again, he set targets. He's got focus. He wants to get there. He knows that he has to make some different decisions. In order to do that, what has to happen? We have to take a different approach on our marketing. We have to take a different approach at how we develop and build our business and our pipeline to get to the next level. If we're going to change our revenue, we're going to change our gross profits, we're going to change these numbers along the way, well, we better have a different pipeline outcome. We need to get that number up so that we can close a certain number of those deals. Now, why do I say 50% plus, right? So 50% plus to close really just means a deal that's just in the works, just got started. I don't add it to that pipeline. It's not real yet. Until I get it to the point where I'm 50% to close or better, it's not real to me just yet. My job is to get it beyond that 50% mark. Once I do that, boom, this thing takes shape. Once we do that, we can have some confidence in our pipeline that we have the right dollars in it, right? So that is extremely, extremely important. So 50% to close. This gentleman who I was just talking about hasn't cracked $1 million, but has just built a pipeline that has over $6 million in it. And he knows that it's over $6 million with 50% plus to close. He's going to have an extraordinary year this year. Now, his next challenge, of course, is going to be building teams with the right systems to execute and keep capacity up to be able to close and handle that business when it does close, right? So he's going to have new challenges ahead. But man, this is all about making better decisions based on these 12 critical numbers. So that's really important. Now, here's that last and final number that is so critical to you and your teams is next month's revenue estimate. Now, where does that number come from? Next month's revenue estimate is very, very simple. And here's the thing. We know based on if we're running our business using the software, using scheduling, and knowing that what we have work set out over the next 30 days, right? We can do the next 30 days. We can do the next 60 days out. So you can look at this as the next 2 months, the next month, up to you and how you work this number. But ultimately, what I want my team to know is what the next 30 days looks like on the schedule, what we should be completing. And damn it, if we don't get that completed, then we didn't achieve what we set out to do. And in fact, if we achieve more than that, then these guys are doing an exceptional job, and we have to figure out how do we do more of that, right? So the next month to close, or the next month's revenue estimate, is extremely important for your team to be operating with a target in mind, knowing that certain milestones have to be hit on a certain number of projects in order to get to that revenue number, right? To get to that estimated target. Now, the estimated target is not a number that we're just pulling out of the air and hoping it happens. It's what we have in contracts, scheduled, jobs in process, with milestones that we know we will hit based on our schedule that tells us we should get to these milestones if we run and operate our projects through project management and coordination, making sure everything is in line and on time, and these numbers should be hit. So this isn't a number we pull out of the air. This is a number that we need to know, and we need to know it so that we can keep people accountable to running the business with targets in mind and actually get there. This is how we get more productive, more efficient, more effective, and more profitable. This is how we increase that revenue. This is how we take, our net profits and go to another level, because we're focused on the production of our teams. So that number, that last one, is extremely critical. They're all critical, and they all tie into each other to make better decisions in your business. I hope you use this tool moving forward, guys, and get your teams in line and in sync with targets and actuals, and get to the next level so that your income can go up. If you want access to more tips, tools, strategies, insights, and podcast episodes, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. If you want to learn more about our program and get exclusive access to the video vault with all of the systems, SOPs, templates, tools, agreements, spreadsheets, and checklists, head over to our website at 4levelcoach.com. That's the number 4levelcoach.com/program. And you can check out more in the description box below, guys. We will see you on the next video.